So,
Okay, we are back this morning, and I think we have the folks from AOT with us. We've postponed you a few times. We're sorry for that, but I think we're on schedule this morning. I think everyone probably got the packet or the information from Joe Flynn, it says here, on the distribution of these funds. But with that, Michelle, you want to take the lead on this morning and take us through it?
Surely, Senator Mazza. I'll have just a few opening overview remarks, and then after that, perhaps Liz can place our document on the screen, and then Wayne Gamble will go through the list.
Okay, thank you. All right, good.
So again, Michelle Boomhauer with the Vermont Agency of Transportation, and we're here this morning to talk about the investment of the $50.4 million in COVID relief funding that the agency is receiving through the Federal Highway Administration. These funds were announced in December of last year, and they provide an unprecedented opportunity for the agency to advance critical community projects and expedite economic relief and development with our contracting community. The funds are available to be implemented over a 4-year time horizon, and the agency is recommending a 2-year implementation plan to address numerous projects which are ready to go in our current program, yet lacked the resources to advance within our FY22 budget. At this time, we're not converting any existing projects to use this funding, but we're adding new projects, which Wayne will get into. This relief package provides 100% federal funding for qualified projects, which meet the guidelines for the FHWA Surface Transportation Block Grant Program that we administer. In order for COVID relief FHWA funds to be applied to projects that are not currently eligible, these funds would need to be budgeted for eligible projects, and the displaced transportation funds could then be directed to other things such as town highway aid, Amtrak, or other needs. The agency budget as proposed has accounted for these needs across these and other areas. The packaging.
Michelle, I'm not sure I just understood what you said. You said we're using the money to add new projects, not not swap. And now I thought what you were saying, we were going to swap. In the so could you clarify that, please?
So what I'm saying in that statement is that a portion of these funds are being used to fund things that are related to our electric vehicle incentive programs, et cetera, that are in our proposed budget. So those are new items in terms of not being funded, not being used to fund like highway projects that were already programmed. So that was—
But like the 1.7 that we already approved in the BAA, that's from the same 50.4.
Yes, that is from the same 50.4, because that was your direction that you left us with last year, that should any new monies become available, to use that first in that in that way. Yeah. So this package includes funding for small culverts, which are projects that small contractors are well suited to address. The package also reflects a strategic pivot towards further investment in bridge maintenance, reflecting the current status of very good bridge conditions based on years of focus on bridge replacements and rehabilitations. So we're now moving to protecting those investments and addressing the culvert issues, which Wayne will get into. We've also, as you know, our customers across the state have been calling for better pavement conditions, and having now really stabilized our bridge investments over the past several years, we're turning to look at the condition of assessments for paving and beginning to make a more substantial investment in paving with this program. And as part of our paving projects, practices for overlay projects, those which don't involve full depth reconstruction and a road widening, we're making sure that we take advantage of the width of the road that's there as we're adding the pavement, where we have viable shoulder areas to accommodate bike and pedestrian users in the network. And we're also recognizing that the paving investments will support our industry partners by providing about a 20% boost in available projects over the next 2 years with this package. You'll see major additional investments in maintenance included in this proposal, an element which is not traditionally eligible for this type of federal funding. And we're also currently developing a detailed plan to deploy additional maintenance activities. In addition to culverts, we're looking at small paving projects that the districts do, tree cutting, stormwater infrastructure maintenance as examples. And finally, I would say that this package distributes investments across the state to assure broad geographic benefit and serves as a critical component of the overall plan for the state's economic recovery from the pandemic. And with those opening remarks, I am going to turn it over to Wayne to get into the details.
So, Michelle, none of this 50.4, 50.360938, according to the sheet, which I have on my other computer, but now it's been brought up. We had testimony from the league, and none of this money then is. This money is all going through and being managed and through AOT. It has no relationship to anything flowing to the towns. I would just want to be clear on that.
That is our proposal.
Okay.
Okay, go right ahead. Wayne, you with us?
Good morning. For the record, my name is Wayne Simmons, Chief Engineer for the Highway Division. And with your permission, I'll just spend just a couple of minutes walking down through this list and give you some insight as to what we were thinking. As previously discussed, the first item on the list is 1.6 million, and that was part of the budget adjustment for FY21, and that's going to be directed to our line item called leveling. And if you go to the next item, you'll see that we're proposing another 3.1 million in FY22 for leveling as well. And then we've parked another 4 million out in FY23 as a proposed number for that fiscal year. So the leveling that's in these line items is what we're looking at right now, coming up with a list, is looking at short segments of road that's kind of the worst of the worst, where we're not going to get to it for a few years, so that we can improve the ride in some locations. And as we normally do this time of year, we're looking at the pavement data that's coming in, and input from the districts and what they're seeing out there plowing. And we're a couple of weeks away from finalizing the list. It's actually probably got more need on it than what the 1.6 and 3.1 million would add up to. But anyway, we're looking to deploy that as soon as the snow gets off the ground. And then some of this leveling probably would get pushed also into the fall as well. It's often good to do a little bit of that work late in the seasons when industry is finishing up some of the larger paving projects. So then, as Michelle spoke about, the next projects on the list are the more substantial, longer segments on routes. And these have been prioritized last year as needs, and we had accelerated projects in anticipation of potentially a stimulus or funding like this, so we could deploy it. So much work had been done on these segments to advance the design. And so they would be ready for deployment in FY22. It was sort of work that was on the shelf waiting for an opportunity like this. Again, these segments are in our system, and they're some of the worst. But at the same time, they're also some that are programmed for many years out for a more substantial project for reclaim or reconstruction. So I don't know if there's any questions about the proposal for paving.
I do have a question, Wayne. Let's see.
Yeah, go right ahead. Senator Perchley, go ahead.
Thank you, Martha. And just not just on the paving, but all these projects, and maybe Michelle said this and I missed it, but did you just go to the project list and just go to the top ones, or did you make some other? I understand the leveling is different, but the specific projects, is there anything different than the normal project selection process with these projects?
No. As I said, last year, probably starting at this time or soon after COVID really hit, and there was talk about stimulus or additional federal funding coming our way, we looked at our pavement management system and selected segments that were in need using our normal project selection process, and begun design on them in hopes that we would actually get additional funding. And so these are the projects that are ready. There's a need for these. And you know, in the past, when we've been surprised by additional funding, we have sometimes made choices based on the ease of deployment or other factors. But in this case, these are really the next ones on the list of need.
Okay, thanks.
So how far down the list did we get? You said, Michelle said they were projects identified, but there was, but no money. Now we have the money. So how far did we get down on those project lists?
So this list is consuming most, if not all, of the advanced design that we had started last year. Again, it's kind of a balancing act. You don't want to start too much. So this is consuming most of that. And it's not to say that it's getting to all the need, because following the work that we're doing right now in this leveling, we'll be identifying more projects that were further down the list to do this same amount of work on. So I think this is a robust list based on what we have ready to go in the time frame. And you'll see even some of this, the majority of the spending for, say, Stockbridge, Rochester is in FY23 on this list. And that means that we're anticipating probably a later summer advertisement for that, because it's not quite ready to go right now.
So we don't necessarily have to spend the money it gives you time to spend the money over the next couple of years, right?
So we have 4 fiscal years to expend this money.
Okay, I didn't know they give you that long.
But we did make the choice to try to do it over 2 fiscal years to get the money put to work.
Good, thank you. Yeah.
So the next item on the list is the small culverts. And I'm certain that you've heard us testify to the challenge that we have with culverts. But also, you know, previous to a few years ago, the agency was criticized, I believe rightfully so, for sometimes not getting ahead of our paving projects with our culvert needs. And we'd go out and pave something, and then the next year we'd find a reason to trench across the new pavement to replace a culvert. So over the last couple of years, we've really ramped up our small culvert program to do the work using federal funds ahead of our paving projects. So this is a list of projects that we would like to invest federal funds in and do a significant culvert replacement ahead of paving projects. And you'll see that some of these small culverts match up with the work that's proposed higher in the list. And some of these projects match up with paving projects that are in other places in the program. But, you know, the idea here is for us to replace a lot of the 2 and 3 foot culverts, the ones that cause bumps and dips in the pavement, shorten our asset life because the cross pipes aren't working. And we would deliver these to many small contractors using IDIQ, which allows us to put this work out quickly. And again, get it to many small contractors. So this wouldn't necessarily be going to, or it wouldn't be included in projects that the large paving contractors would get. And you'll see that we did make an effort to geographically spread that work out as much as possible. There's plenty of need here. And, you know, geographically, I think we've done a good job of spreading that out to a lot of contractors.
Well, Senator Chittenden wants to visit every one of these culverts. There's 49,000 or something like that. So he wants to do the summer tour. So
I do. May I ask a question?
go ahead, Senator Chittenden.
So I'm surprised to see they're all estimated at 500,000. I'm wondering what the logic there is and how much there actually is fluctuation, what you do with the differences. And you also use an acronym, IDIQ. What is IDIQ?
Yeah, sorry. I'll start with the IDIQ question first. It's a relatively new contracting method that we have at the state of Vermont. The FHWA has now allowed us to use. It stands for indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity, which is also almost as confusing as the acronym. But if you think about it as a list of contractors that are on retainer, so we already have them under contract and they're just waiting for an assignment, okay? And so we have dozens of small contractors that have this as a work category. And instead of starting at the scratch and going through a long bid process, we can get the work out in a matter of a week or two. So yes, we do have these all listed as 500,000, and that the reason for that is that these projects right now are starting to be designed. They're relatively quick hitters, and in some cases, we believe that there'll be a lower spend than 500,000. And in some cases, it might be slightly more. But our target for the overall program and for this list is $5 million. And, you know, if it's slightly less than that, then that would just carry forward into FY23 as spending authority for this COVID plan. And in some cases, you know, on some of the longer segments, we might also have to make a decision to live with a fair culvert to try to stretch the dollars as much as we can.
Okay. Yes, Senator Perchlik.
I'm glad you have that one project listed as Marshfield Danville. It's important that you had the right town first. But is it in Marshfield or is it in Danville?
Or
Yes.
Cabot, or is it Cabot?
Right. No, we don't care about Cat. Well, I care about Cat.
It's I can't tell you how many culverts are in each town, but it is along Route 2, beginning in Marshfield and ending in Danville. So
That's a long culvert.
It starts there and it ends up in Grand Isle.
Well, I
Seems
feel
like it's,
Danville got a lot of AOT money compared to Marshfield, so I hope it's in Marshfield.
well, actually, doesn't the Cabot town line kick in just about by the turn to the Groton State Forest? So
It's probably
seems like it seems like most of this is in fact that even though it's Marshfield on one end, Danville on the other, most of it's going to fall in the town of Cabot, which is also in your district, Senator.
Remember, Andy, she has the final say with money. Just always remember that, okay? So, okay. She gets the final rubber stamp on the thing here. Okay, go right ahead, Wayne.
So that's the story on the small culverts. So as Michelle spoke about, we're proposing $5 million for bridge maintenance, and very strategically, not $5 million on bridge replacement, because as we've testified, we've really done a good job in getting our structurally deficient or poor bridges, as they're known now, down. But we need to pivot and start really looking at some of our needs for the maintenance side to keep them in fair and good condition. And we do have a pretty significant list, and we're looking at this as an opportunity again to get to those high needs, but also a lot of this work would be done with IDIQ contractors. So we can put a lot of small contractors all across the state to work doing this, and also accomplishing our mission of really ramping up the maintenance on our bridges. And it is just a line item because honestly, this would be probably a list of 2 to 3 dozen locations, and that's still being worked out right now to try to figure out how we would fit that into the budget. So the last item on the list, and I want to make sure that you know, I'm not sounding like I'm contradicting Michelle, so I'm maybe clarifying what is going on with these last bullets. But if you look in FY22, there's a statewide needs not yet programmed and various for $6 million. So this is the exception to the rule. This is not new work. Okay, this is work that we would otherwise do with T-fund dollars, but we're allowed to use it. We're allowed to use the COVID funds to replace the state dollars. And that $6 million is used elsewhere in the budget for other needs or other activities that the COVID funds could not be used for. So I know Lenny is on the call and he can speak more coherently about what the uses of that $6 million were in the budget, but both in FY22 and FY23, those two amounts under this line item would be replacing transportation dollars, and those are used elsewhere in the budget. So this really isn't new work.
So that's reflected in your transportation plan. The 6 million in FY22, that's in your
that's in this plan, and it's in the revenue calculation and the funding in the budget.
Yeah, okay.
And again, I know Lenny is on here and hoping that if you have questions beyond that he can jump in. But you know, our plan here would be to select maintenance activities that are easy to track and direct the expenditures to this line item to consume the 6 million instead of state funds.
Okay. Questions? Okay, Jane, you got a question?
Well, so I understand, and rather than state funds, T funds. So is this allowing you to do the level of work you would like, or is it in addition to, because of the revenues coming in, this just helps fill the gap? I'm a little confused, but we can get into that level of detail. My question is, give us some examples of the maintenance activities. Obviously, bridge is separate. Level and paving is separate. So what other, and then culverts are separate. So what do you, and could you give us some examples of what you would identify as activities that fall into this category?
So the funding, that this COVID funding is very flexible in terms of the maintenance activities that it could be used for. And because it's used for, or the intention is to replace state spending, we would likely direct this to such things as purchasing salt or other winter maintenance materials, some of those large ticket items that we could spend this down and know that we, well, it kind of with those large known expenditures that we would have, instead of directing it to other activities like ditching or other things that are harder to track.
Okay, all right, that makes sense.
Okay,
I have one more.
yes, Senator Pertlick?
So Wayne, how does that, the list of the projects, like the culverts and the paving projects, affect what we have in this fine document? Or does it? Or it's all in here?
It's baked into your fine document. So you should see these things now. And I should have looked before the testimony, but I believe that the culvert work is shown as a line item in the budget, because as you'll notice, we don't have project numbers yet assigned to that culvert work. So I don't think they show up as individual projects in the budget. But the projects up above that have an FPAVE number should be a line item in the budget, each project.
Okay, because the culverts aren't normally, will they have a number and be in the book normally?
You know, it's quite routine for us to budget culvert work as a line item, because again, it's kind of quick hit. We program it, do a quick design, and get it out to construction. But before it does go to construction, it will get a line item, or it will get a project number. And if that project straddles a fiscal year, ultimately it will show up as a project in the budget. If it gets done in one year, it may not show up as a line in the budget.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Yes, Senator Chittenden.
So Wayne, I often ask this in my city council role, but I'm curious, what was on the bubble? What were there projects that just barely made the cut, and what criteria did you finally use to, if there were some that just didn't quite make it for this round of funding, what criteria did you ultimately use to decide what you did?
So as I previously stated, we used up with this list most, if not all, of our work on the FPAVE side that would be ready to go at least in FY22. There's a good chance that we could have some more ready for FY23, but they're not identified at this time. We definitely prioritized the culvert work and keeping some level of bridge maintenance in here. If I was to, from my perspective, and again, it was our asset management folks and some others that were really doing the hard lifting on this. But if I was to state what I believe the bubble was, it would have been a couple of bridge projects that did not get funded for construction in this fiscal year that could have been ready to go. And again, we looked at the condition. Yes, the condition is trending towards poor on all of those, but given the needs of the culverts and the paving, we made the decision to prioritize funding there, and those bridge projects will show up next year for construction funding under the normal program. So we lost basically a year of construction on those projects. So that was really the bubble that we were looking at.
Okay, go ahead.
So that's the end of my testimony. Again, I don't know whether you want to hear from Lenny on the maintenance activities at the bottom.
Anybody want to hear further?
Could I ask Lenny a question?
Sure.
Not can I, may I? I have the ability, I can, but may I have permission to ask Lenny a question? I had a grammar
If he's
teacher.
willing to accept it.
Oh, okay. Lenny, so the 6 million that's there in 22, if that money was not available, would then we have to make reductions to what to accommodate less revenue coming in? I understand you want to, it'll benefit and allow more maintenance, but I'm just wondering if it's not additive. Is it additive to what, or is it simply because of revenue projections being a bit less, it allows this money to support activities that otherwise we might have to reduce spending as a result? Have I
Yeah.
totally confused you?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay,
As Wayne suggested, this $6 million in maintenance activities, it's not additive at all. It simply replaces transportation fund that would need to be appropriated in the maintenance appropriation for those activities.
Mhm.
And that allows us to redirect $6 million to other proposed activities that are included in the governor's recommended 22 budget. For
Okay.
example, increasing the transfer to the downtown transportation fund, funding EV initiatives.
okay,
it
I
gives
got
us
it.
the
I got it. So this is obviously a good way of, and an easy, large expenditure that makes sense to use it this way. And then the freed up T funds are being proposed to be used in other ways.
Correct, because
Okay.
those other ways aren't eligible for this pot of money.
Yeah,
Okay,
thanks.
you're welcome.
Okay, next.
That's it, isn't it? Or are we going into other, because there were several buckets of funding to the
Yeah,
agency. So
what is the plan this morning, folks? From AOT?
I'm afraid I am not aware of other areas you wanted to hear about today. So I think we were only prepared to talk about the
Okay.
COVID monies. We've done the overarching budget and the detailed budget presentations. I guess I'm wondering what areas you'd like to hear about going forward.
Now, what I was thinking, Michelle, there were different pots of money related to transportation. I think some might have been public transit. There was a list here that I can't find. So,
Yeah.
but this is the surface transportation grant that you got. So,
Oh, you mean other COVID funds?
Yes,
yes,
yes.
yes.
Okay.
Can we
okay.
get that? Can we get that at a later time or?
Yeah, it's pretty, yeah, we can do
Okay.
that.
Okay.
yeah.
Just tell Liz when you have it, so we get the whole picture of everything.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any other questions this morning for the folks at AOT? All right. I guess that completes it.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for coming over. Appreciate it. Okay. Committee, anything else you want to discuss this morning before we break? All set. We'll see you all at 1 o'clock, right?
1 o'clock.
On the floor, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I gotta go feed my cat.
You gotta go feed the cat. Okay. Yeah. Who's buying the food? You gotta make sure you get enough of it, you know?
I think
Well, your brother
think-
probably donate the food at the store, you
grandma's buying the food.
know? Michelle.
Okay.
Senator Mazza, perhaps after we go off the